let's talk about transferring oil and gas mineral rights. It's actually really, really easy to transfer the mineral rights. It feels a little intimidating when you've never done it before. And it's something that almost every mineral owner needs to do at least once. Usually, the most common scenario is that they just inherited mineral rights and they need to transfer the ownership from their great Aunt Sally to themselves. And it's either a one-step or a two-step process. There's just one step if there are no active oil and gas wells and they're non-producing minerals. There's only one thing you need to do. If you have an active oil and gas well or many wells, then there's two steps. But we're going to go over all of that. But before you get to those steps, the really critical component here is that you really need to have legal ownership of the minerals. This usually happens in some kind of a deed, assignment, a conveyance document, or maybe a probate document. And in this example, we'll say that you have a mineral and royalty deed that was issued from a trust into your name. So the trust may mail you the deed, and you don't want that to just sit in a drawer. First, you need to make sure that the deed was recorded with the county where the minerals are located. Because the deed that's not been recorded you don't really own it. The recording is what really gives you that ownership. So don't just stick it in your drawer. Just make sure you get the deed recorded if it hasn't been. Recording a deed is really easy. You just go to the county, well, you can look online and find the county where the minerals are located and see who keeps track of the deed records. In Texas, you have the county clerk. In Kansas, you've got the Register of Deeds. Every state has a little bit different way that they organize and keep track of the deed records. So you just want to call whoever's in charge in the county where your minerals are and find what the filing fees are. Usually it's pretty small. It probably ranges from about $30 to maybe over $100 depending on what state and county your minerals are in. So just get the address and send them a check for the filing fee. It takes them about usually a week and a half to 4 weeks in order to get that deed filed and sent back to you. When you get it back, you want to scan it and make sure that you have a digital copy as well as your original. And keep your digital copy in the cloud wherever you keep all your important files. You will probably need it someday. If you don't need it, your heirs will need it. If you own non-producing mineral rights, that means there's no active oil and gas wells, then you're done. You've transferred the ownership. Your ownership is reflected in the county deed records, and if someone decides to drill a well in the future, they will use those deed records to figure out what you own, or to figure out that you're the owner and present you with an oil and gas lease. If you own producing minerals, then you have one more step that you need to go through. The operator of whatever wells are on your property, they aren't aware that ownership changed just because you recorded the deed with the county. You need to actually send them a copy of the recorded deed and ask them to transfer the ownership. It's pretty easy to find the operator's contact information. Most of them have a website and they have an owner relations tab that's fairly noticeable. So you can find the phone number to call or their address or their email address. I always send deeds via email because it's just faster. I can follow up more easily, but you can mail it as well. It can take the operator anywhere from 30 days to more than 6 months to transfer the ownership. Larger operators tend to take longer than smaller operators, but that's not really true across the board. So it really varies from operator to operator. And sometimes you need to follow up with them several times to make sure that the ownership really gets transferred. Once they go through and they look at your deed and they re-examine their title and they make sure that everything looks good, then they will send you a division order. You need to make sure that the decimal interest on the division order matches the previous owner's royalty statement. That's pretty important because the division order is sort of an agreement between the operator and the mineral owner on what is owned and what will be paid. So you definitely want to check that before you send it back. The other thing that the operator needs for you to send them is a W-9 form, and that's for tax purposes. They will send you a 1099 at the end of the year so that you can report your royalty income on your taxes. Once the operator gets the division order back, then they will usually put you into pay status, which means that they will start sending you royalty checks when enough royalty revenue has accumulated. And that's all you need to do. So it's pretty easy to get into pay status. You just need to follow each step, and you often have to follow up with the operator multiple times to make sure that you really do get into pay status for every well. I sometimes see that mineral owners are in pay status for some of the property that they own and not others. And that could be something as simple as not filling out the division order or not finishing the ownership transfer process if there was some title issue that needed to be fixed. So you definitely want to make sure that all of your interest has been transferred and that every operator has you in pay status for every well. So in the other cases where you might want to transfer the ownership, such as putting your assets into a trust or after a divorce, you often have an attorney who will do some of this for you. So you may or may not be responsible for doing it yourself. But if you are, the same steps apply.